The smallest soldier, the war had spread across 5 star systems. Every race in the Alliance had sent their strongest to the front lines. Tall warriors with sharp claws, glowing eyes, and armor that weighed more than a transport ship's engine. They trained in fire and gravity storms in the dark silence of broken moons, and then the human arrived. He stepped off the shuttle quietly, carrying a small bag on his back. He was not tall, not glowing, not covered in thick armor. His skin was smooth, his face calm, and his eyes soft like someone who had never seen a battlefield. Commander. Cyril narrowed her eyes and growled to her second-in-command, "Why is this creature here? Is this some kind of mascot?" The others laughed. Warriors from the Renak, the Draktor, even the cold-blooded Nivalians chuckled at the sight of him. One alien nudged another and said, "He looks like a baby. He'll break if he falls down." The human didn't react. He simply walked to his assigned place in the barracks, placed his bag down, and sat quietly. The medic of the team, a pale-skinned alien named Zayli, watched him from a distance. She didn't laugh. Something about the human's silence felt strange, not weak, just quiet like a deep well with no bottom. That evening, during orientation, the human was given the lowest rank, Assistant Field Tech. He was told to carry gear, clean weapons, and stay out of the way. Commander Zyril stood before them, tall and sharp as a blade, her eyes glowing with pride. "This is the first day of your training," she roared. "Only the strong will survive. The weak will return home in pieces, if they're lucky." She glanced at the human and sneered. Training began the next morning. The aliens lifted heavy stones, sprinted across lava fields, and crawled under electrical arcs. The human was always at the back. Not slow, but not fast either. Not tired, but not showing off too soft, one warrior muttered. Maybe he's made of water. But when he was ordered to lift a plasma launcher twice his size, he did it. Slowly, carefully, and without a word. That night, as most of the squad groaned, from muscle pain, the human sat outside alone, staring at the stars. Zayli approached him. "You're not like the others," she said. The human looked at her. "You mean I'm not tall, not glowing, and not growling?" She blinked. "Yes." He smiled. "I'm used to it. You don't talk much. Talking doesn't stop bullets." She paused. "Do you think you belong here?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I'll know when the time comes." The next day, the team was sent on a training mission into the canyons of Orektal. They were told it was a drill, a controlled simulation. But something went wrong. A rogue drone, left over from an old war, had activated deep in the canyon. It locked onto movement. It fired. A transport tank flipped over, crushing Commander Zyril's leg under its weight. Chaos broke out. The aliens ran, shouting, ducking behind rocks as the drone circled above, firing plasma shots. Zayli screamed for help, trapped near the damaged tank. No one moved, except the human. He walked forward through the smoke. Slow, steady, his eyes calm. "Get back," someone shouted. "You'll die." But the human didn't stop. He reached the tank. Commander Zyril gasped in pain. "Leave me, human, you're too weak. Save yourself." The human crouched, placing both hands under the heavy tank. His muscles tensed, his back arched. And then, the impossible happened. He lifted the tank, not with a machine, not with help, with his own strength. Gasps echoed across the canyon. Even the drone paused, scanning its sensors in confusion. The human dragged Zyril free, placed her down gently, then turned and looked up at the drone. It fired. He leapt, with a single punch. He smashed the drone from the sky. Metal rained around him. Smoke curled into the sky. Silence followed. No one laughed now. Zayli stared at him. What are you?" The human looked at her, his face still calm. "Just a soldier." He walked away, leaving the others staring in shock. And somewhere deep in the Alliance Command Center, a message was sent. Subject Alpha has activated. Phase 1 complete. The test of fire. No one could sleep that night. They had seen something they couldn't explain. Something they couldn't even believe. The smallest soldier, the one they laughed at, had lifted a battle tank and crushed a drone with a single punch. Commander Zyril lay in the medical bay, her leg wrapped in regeneration gel, her claws dug into the metal bed frame. Not from pain, but from shame. How? She whispered to herself. How did that small creature do it? Nearby, Zaylee sat in silence, watching footage from the drone's destroyed memory core. Frame by frame, she studied his movement. The calm way he walked. The unnatural stillness before the lift. No shaking. No panic. Only control. And then the punch. It blurred on every camera, too fast for even high-speed sensors to track. This is not normal, Zaylee whispered. She ran the footage again, and again, and again. Something ancient stirred in her mind. Stories told in hushed voices. Myths about beings who walked like mortals but fought like gods. The next day, the soldiers returned to the field. This time, no one mocked the human. They glanced at him when they thought he wasn't looking. Some with curiosity, others with fear. He said nothing. He only stood near the supply crates, hands behind his back, eyes always watching. A new order arrived from command. The unit will undergo emergency combat trials. Immediate deployment to Sector 7. Live weapons active. Live fire? 1, Alien shouted. But this is just training. The war has changed, Commander Zyril growled, limping into view. And I want to see what this human does when the fire gets hotter. The team entered the shuttle in silence. Sector 7 was a broken world, cracked mountains, molten rivers, and the ruins of forgotten wars. The sky was always red and the wind howled like it remembered pain. The mission: recover a lost data core from a crashed Alliance beacon. Simple, they were told. But as soon as they landed, they knew something was wrong. The signal was too quiet. The ground was scorched recently, and the wreckage of other ships lay half buried in black sand. Commander Zyril raised a hand. Scan for movement. Before the scanners finished, the first explosion hit. A hidden turret opened fire, slicing through the air. 2 soldiers fell. The rest dove for cover. It wasn't a training exercise, this was a trap. The enemy wasn't an army. It was worse. War machines from the Forgotten Empire. Sentient tanks, walking bombs, creatures of iron and rage. They had waited, sleeping underground, until the human arrived. One of the machines spoke through static. We remember your kind. Commander Zyril's jaw tightened. What is that supposed to mean? The human looked up. His face was pale, but not from fear. From memory. They were made to fight us, he said softly. Seeley turned. What are you talking about? Before he could answer, the machines charged. Massive metal beasts rolled over the ridge, firing beams of heat and energy. The ground shook. Rocks exploded. The air filled with screams and fire. The squad fought back, but their weapons barely scratched the armor. Fall back! Someone shouted. The medic was caught between the machines, her leg pinned under rubble. The human saw her, and again he didn't hesitate. He ran. One of the machines turned toward him, charging a cannon. It fired. Dust exploded around him, but when it cleared, the human was still standing. His arm was bleeding, but he didn't stop. He leapt onto the machine's head, tore open a hatch with his hands, and ripped the core out. The metal beast screamed and fell, its circuits bursting into flame. The others stopped, scanning him. Then, all at once, they backed away. Not because of weapons, but because they recognized him. Alpha confirmed. Threat level. Ancient. They fled. When it was over, the battlefield was quiet again. Bodies were collected. Wounds were treated. But everyone kept looking at him. You've fought them before, Zaylee whispered, her voice shaking. How? The human sat beside the wrecked machine. My people built them, a long time ago, and we buried them even longer. I go, why? He looked at the stars. Because we were afraid of what we were becoming. Commander Zyril limped forward, Her pride was broken, but her voice was strong. What? Are you? The human stood. Dust clung to his skin. His shirt was torn, but his eyes were steady. I'm just the beginning. A long silence followed. Then Zero nodded. I believe you. And somewhere far above, deep inside Alliance Command, alarms began to flash. Earth Secret was awake, and the galaxy would never be the same. Classified files after the battle at Sector 7. Everything changed. The team returned to base silent and shaken. They had seen the machines, ancient war beasts that should not have been alive. But more than that, they had seen the human, tear them apart with his bare hands. No one laughed at him anymore. No one even dared speak unless he spoke first. Commander Zyril, once proud and loud, now walked with a limp and a haunted look in her eyes. She sat in her command chair staring at the holomap, but her mind was elsewhere. He said we built them, she whispered. His kind built those machines, and then buried them, like secrets. Beside her, Zaylee moved quietly. Her long fingers tapped the command console as she accessed the medical records again. But everything about the human, his biology, his past, even his name, was locked, classified. Terran high clearance only. They're hiding something, Zaylee said softly. Zyril nodded. And we were fools to think he was weak. In the lower levels of the base, the human sat alone in a dark room. No one had assigned him quarters. No one dared tell him what to do anymore. He stared at the floor, unmoving. Inside his mind, memories twisted and turned. Not his, not fully. They came in flashes. Fire, screams, gods walking among mortals. Cities burned under red skies. He had seen these things before. Or maybe someone inside him had. Elsewhere in the base, a group of high-ranking officers met in secret. This one is dangerous, said the Nivalian tactician. He destroyed an ancient war unit with no tech. His files are sealed tighter than a Black Stars Corps, growled a Rhynak general. Only the Terrans know what he is. They brought in a human liaison, Ambassador Cole. You've sent something dangerous into our ranks, Zyril said to him directly. Cole didn't deny it. You asked for help, we gave it. That thing is no normal soldier. Cole leaned forward. You think you're scared now? Imagine what would have happened if we sent the second one. The room fell silent. Meanwhile, Zaylee couldn't rest. The medic kept reviewing her scans. Something about the human's body made no sense. His bones were dense, almost too dense. His muscles were ordinary in appearance, but under pressure, they didn't tear or fail. Even more terrifying, his blood carried dormant signals. Something like command codes mixed with memory fragments. What are you hiding? She whispered, staring at the results. That night, she found the human outside the base, standing at the edge of the canyon. Why do you hide? She asked. He didn't look at her. Because the galaxy isn't ready. For what? For the truth. He turned to her slowly. Your people think humans are weak because we don't show power. But the truth is, we learned to bury it. Why? She asked, his voice lowered. Because when we let it rise, we become something else. The next day, the base was on high alert. A distress signal had come from a nearby system. A transport ship had vanished. No signal, no wreckage, nothing. It was as if it had been erased from time. The council feared a new weapon. The officers feared another rogue machine. But the human, he felt something different. He stood up and said only one thing. They're testing us. Commander Zyril called out, Who is they? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked into the hangar and climbed aboard a scout vessel alone. Before anyone could stop him, the ship launched. Zaylee couldn't stay behind. She felt something pulling her toward him. Something she couldn't explain. She hijacked a medical shuttle and followed his signal across the stars. The journey took hours, then days, and finally, she found him. On a dead world. Gray skies. Burning seas. He stood at the center of a forgotten city, its towers broken, its people long turned to dust. He was standing in front of a door. Huge, ancient, sealed with symbols. Even Zaylee didn't recognize. She landed, ran to him. "What is this place?" He looked at her quiet. Then he placed his hand on the door. It opened. Inside was a black chamber filled with silver walls and red light. Stasis pods lined the room, hundreds of them. Inside each pod, humans, sleeping, alive, but different, taller, older, stronger. "Who are they?" Zaylee asked. "The ones who came before," he said. "The ones who left when we chose to be weak." "Why did they leave?" he whispered. "Because they couldn't stop fighting, and we were scared of what we'd become if we followed." Zaylee turned to him, her heart pounding. "Then why are you waking them now?" His voice turned cold. "Because the galaxy is waking its monsters. And now, we must wake ours." Far above, on a listening station orbiting the system, a red warning light began to flash. Stasis vault breach detected origin. Terran deep vault. Omega protocol threat level. Beyond classification. Back on the surface, the humans stepped inside the vault, and one by one, the old ones began to wake. What he really is, the vault's air was still. Ancient. Cold. Rows and rows of stasis pods lined the walls, glowing faintly in red. Each one held a sleeping human, not like the others, not like the one who had awakened. Them. These were taller, their features sharper, their bodies unnaturally still as if carved from stone. Some had scars that glowed faintly, like memories trapped under the skin. Others wore armor older than any star chart. Zaylee couldn't move. She stood at the edge of the vault staring at them, her breath short. "What are they?" she whispered. The human walked slowly between the pods. He placed his hand on one of them. "They were called Sentinels," he said. "The first protectors of Earth. They were created during the Great Collapse when the stars burned and empires fell. They were designed to stop the darkness that came." Zaylee frowned. "Darkness?" He looked at her, eyes unreadable. "Not enemies. Not armies. Not war. Something worse. Something that changed minds, that erased hope, that made the strongest beings in the galaxy fall to their knees and beg for death." Zaylee took a step back. "I've never heard of that. You were never meant to," he replied. "It was buried, erased from all records. Only Earth remembers, and barely." He moved to the center of the vault. There, unlike the others, stood a broken pod. Empty. Zaylee pointed to it. "Was that one yours?" He nodded. "You were one of them?" He nodded again. "Then why are you different? Why were you awake before them?" His voice dropped. "Because I was the last to sleep, and the first to be called back." Meanwhile, in the orbiting command ship above the sector, panic had spread. The red warning had triggered a lockdown. High command gathered around the central console. "What is Omega Protocol?" one officer shouted. "Why is it human-coded? Why can't we override it?" Ambassador Cole appeared on the comm screen. His face was pale, his voice cold. "Because you were never supposed to access it," Commander Zyril growled. "What is inside that vault?" Cole paused, then spoke 3 words. "Our forgotten gods." On the dead world, Zaylee followed the human deeper into the vault. Glowing runes lit up as he walked. The walls shifted silently, revealing massive murals, painted in old human style. She saw images of planets burning, galaxies torn apart, beings of shadow rising from black holes, and in every image stood the Sentinels, 10 of them, eyes glowing white, standing in front of the fire. "They stopped at once," he said quietly. "But at a cost." "What cost?" she asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the wall and placed his palm on a square panel. It glowed, and a voice echoed through the chamber, old, mechanical, and cold. Alpha 01 confirmed. Initiating reactivation. The stasis pods began to hum. One by one, the Sentinels opened their eyes. White light burst from within. Deep, silent power filled the room. Pressure rolled off them like a wave. Zaylee fell to her knees, struggling to breathe. They weren't just soldiers. They were something else. something more. One of the sentinels stepped forward, his eyes scanning the room. He looked at the human. "How long?" The human replied softly. "Over 2,000 cycles." "The darkness?" "Returning." The sentinel nodded. "Then we begin." Zaylee tried to stand, but her legs trembled. She looked at the human. "You said you were the..." First, he turned to her, his voice calm but heavy. "I wasn't the first sentinel." "What were you then?" He looked back at the empty pod. "I was their handler, their fail-safe." "Fail-safe?" He walked toward her slowly. "If the sentinels ever lost control, if they ever became what they were created to fight, I was made to stop them." Zaylee's eyes widened. "You were made to kill them?" "Yes," he said. "And now, I don't know if I can." In the outer sky, Alliance fleets moved into formation around the planet. Orders came in fast. Contain the threat. Destroy the vault if necessary. But just as the attack order was about to be given, every ship's system shut down. Lights died. Engines froze. Weapons deactivated, and a single message appeared on every screen. "Stand down. You are not ready for what comes next." Back on the surface, Zaylee stood between gods. She felt small, fragile. But something inside her refused to run. She stepped closer to the human. "Then what happens now?" He looked at her, and for the first time his voice shook. "Now we find out if the galaxy can survive the truth." He turned to the others. "They buried us, they laughed at us, they called us cute, soft, weak." He raised his hand, and the broken world around them began to tremble. "Let's remind them what we really are." The vault doors opened, and 10 forgotten warriors stepped into the light. Their footsteps shook the world. Somewhere far beyond, the darkness stirred and whispered, "They've awakened." Again, fear spreads. The news spread faster than light. A vault had opened. A forgotten vault, human in origin, sealed for millennia beneath a dead world. 10 beings had awakened. Their power was not read by scanners. Their names were not in any file. But every fleet, every empire, every ancient race that still remembered the old wars and felt it. They didn't know the details. But they knew one thing. The humans had awakened something terrifying. Inside the base near Sector 7, alarms still blinked. Commander Ziral stood in the war room staring at the last feed from the vault. The image froze on a single moment. 10 glowing eyes looking back at the camera. One of the officers beside her whispered, "What are they?" Ziral clenched her fists. "Not what, who?" Another voice answered, "They're the reason the galaxy tried to forget Earth." Everyone turned. It was Ambassador Cole. He didn't smile, didn't blink. He just placed a data crystal on the table. "This file is not supposed to exist," he said. "But you've earned the truth." The file played on the center screen. The footage was grainy, damaged by age, but clear enough. A battlefield, broken planets, black space filled with fire, and a single human walking through it, his eyes glowing, his body covered in blood and dust. He faced something massive, a creature made of shadows and screams floating between stars, and then the human lifted his hand. The sky shattered, the creature died screaming, and the footage ended. The room was silent. "That wasn't a weapon," Ziral said slowly. "That was willpower." Cole nodded. "You asked us to help with your war. You thought we were sending soldiers. We sent memories." "Memories?" He looked out the window. "That human you mocked, he carries more than training. He carries the weight of what we chose to forget." Meanwhile, deep in space, across the old Empire sectors, panic had begun. The Rhynak war priests lit their blood fires. The Navalians closed their border gates. The Silvran chorus, who hadn't sung in 1,000 years, began chanting the words of the last prophecy. "If the earth breathes again, the stars will burn for it." Worse, on the edge of uncharted space, something moved, a signal that hadn't echoed since before recorded time. A voice. Ancient. Cruel. "Bring the darkness. The gods have risen. It's time to end what we failed before. On the dead." World Zayli traveled with the human and the sentinels. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. They walked across mountains, deserts, and ice fields. Wherever they passed, the ground felt different, as if the planet itself remembered them. In the silent sky above, more satellites turned their eyes. Some watched in fear, others watched in hope. The sentinels were preparing for something. One night, Zayli sat beside the human near the edge of a broken cliff. The stars above were cold, endless. "You're afraid," she said softly. He didn't lie. "Yes." "Why?" "You have them. You have power. You have the past." He looked down at his hands. "Because I also have the truth." "What truth?" He didn't answer right away. Then he spoke slowly. "The Sentinels were made to defend the galaxy. But something went wrong." "What went wrong?" "They started to see themselves as the final judges." Zayli's eyes widened. "They turned?" "Not all," he whispered. "But enough. They became what they were made to destroy." "How did it end?" He stared into the dark. "We ended them. We buried them. We chose to forget." Far above, in the cold of the void, the darkness began to take form. It wasn't an army. It wasn't ships or fleets or machines. It was something alive, but not in the way life was known. A force that consumed belief, erased identity, and left only silence behind. It moved when people lost hope, when courage died, when warriors fell to doubt. And now, it had sensed something. The Sentinels were back, and with them, so was the Handler, the only being who had ever destroyed the darkness before. Inside the vault ship now flying toward Alliance space, one of the Sentinels, Corin, spoke. His voice was heavy, deep, and made Zayli's bones shake. "They know we are awake." The human nodded. "Then we don't wait." He turned to the others. "Next stop, the core of the Alliance." Zayli blinked. "Why?" "They fear you." He looked at her, serious now. "Because they need to." At the Alliance Council, the leaders of 100 worlds met in secret chambers. Screens blinked. Fleets were deployed. Weapons powered. But no plan was enough. No wall high enough. No ship fast enough. Someone finally said it. "We either follow him, or we wait to be destroyed." And in the silence of deep space, the darkness laughed. The last protocol. The Alliance core was the safest place in the galaxy. Or so they believed. It floated in neutral space, a giant ring of steel and stars wrapped in shields powered by 4 suns. Thousands of ships guarded it. Millions of lives depended on it. And the leaders of 100 worlds lived there, convinced no threat could ever reach them. Until now, a single ship approached, small, silent, unarmed. It didn't answer hails. It didn't slow down. Inside that ship, the Handler stood at the front, eyes fixed on the golden core. Zayli stood beside him, her hands trembling. Behind them, the 10 Sentinels sat in silence, eyes closed, remembering what they were. "They'll shoot you down," Zayli whispered. The human didn't blink. "They won't." "How can you be sure?" He turned to her. His voice was soft, but unshakable. "Because if they do, they lose their last chance to survive." Inside the Alliance Council chamber, alarms rang. "The vault ship is approaching," barked a general. "They're not responding to any command." "Shoot it down," shouted a diplomat. Ambassador Cole raised a hand. "Do that and you'll start the war you're trying to avoid." "We're already at war," someone screamed. "You saw what those things did." "They're not protectors, they're weapons." Cole looked around the room. Then he spoke clearly. "Then maybe it's time to ask, who do you want holding the weapons when the real enemy arrives?" The vault ship reached the station. It stopped. No weapons activated, no threats spoken, just silence. Then, the ramp opened. The human stepped out, alone. No armor, no weapon, only purpose. Soldiers surrounded him. Snipers aimed from above. He raised his hands. "I'm not here to fight. Commander. Zero stepped forward. She looked different now. More cautious, more respectful. Then why are you here? He looked at her. To activate the last protocol. They took him inside. Through layers of locked doors and ancient walls, he asked for no escort. He remembered the path. At the very center of the core, past vaults even the Council had forgotten, was a sealed chamber. Protocol Chamber 0. The doors had no handles, no buttons, only a small square. The human placed his palm on it. Light bloomed. The doors opened. Inside was a single console and beside it a chair made of black crystal. He sat down. Zaylee followed, heart pounding. What is this? He looked up at her. This is where we left the message. What message? The last warning. He activated. The console, a hologram appeared. It showed stars falling, planets screaming, minds breaking, and at the end, a single line of code, Protocol Omega, awaken the gods or accept extinction. Back in the chamber, the council watched from the command screen. What's he doing? One whispered. Cole replied, something only humans were allowed to do, something even they hoped they'd never need. Inside the room, the 10 sentinels entered. They circled the console. Each of them placed a hand on the crystal chair, and then they knelt. Zaylee's breath caught. Why are they kneeling? The handler stood. His voice echoed, deep and distant. Because the last protocol isn't a weapon. It's a choice. He looked to the sky. To rise, or to fall. He touched the final key. The chamber lit up like a star. Across the galaxy. Something changed. In the dark corners of the void where sensors feared to look, the darkness woke fully. It had no face, no shape, only hunger. Its whispers returned. They remember. They rise. We end them now. On Alliance worlds, civilians looked up and saw the sky shift. Colors bent, lights pulsed. Strange energy danced across the atmosphere, and one word appeared in every language, on every screen. Prepare. Commander Zyril stood in the command room, stunned. What did he just do? Cole answered. He called the last shield. Deep beneath forgotten planets, more vaults began to open, sleeping humans. Ancient ones. Not all soldiers. Some were engineers. Some were creators. Some were monsters that Earth had locked away for fear of themselves. And now, they were all waking. In the vault ship, Zaylee turned to the handler. What happens next? His voice was low, steady, full of storm. Now the galaxy must choose. Choose what? He looked at her, not as a human, not as a soldier, as something more, to stand with us, or be swept away with the rest. The last protocol was live. Hope and fear had returned. And the darkness? The darkness was coming. When gods wake, the galaxy held its breath. Ships stood still. Satellites blinked in silence. Fleets waited for orders that never came. In every corner of known space, the message repeated in cold, steady light. Prepare, but prepare for what? No one really knew, except the one who had awakened the last protocol. He stood in the heart of the Alliance, surrounded by leaders who once mocked him, feared him, tried to contain him. Now they listened. Even in silence, his presence shook the room. Above the core station, stars shifted, not physically, but spiritually, as if reality itself sensed what was about to happen. The darkness had begun to move. No longer hiding, no longer creeping. It came fast like a wave of memory and shadow. Entire sectors went dark without warning. Planets disappeared, not destroyed, but erased. Nothing remained. No sound, no dust, no names, just emptiness. In the Alliance war room, holograms flickered. One by one, systems vanished from the map. A Nevalian general whispered, "They're not invading. They're deleting." Ambassador Cole turned to the human. "We need to act now." The handler nodded. Once, gather everyone, he said. This is not a battle we can fight alone. Across space, messages were sent, coded in ancient human tongue mixed with forgotten frequencies. Within hours, they answered. Vaults opened. Doors that had been locked for tens of thousands of years. Earth had prepared for this. Not just one human. Not just 10 sentinels, but an entire hidden army, buried in black ice, in old moons, in false stars. Humans who never fit the records. Humans with glowing veins, burning eyes, hands that could bend space. They rose quietly, but with purpose. Zaylee stood beside the handler as the War Council gathered. They're scared, she said. Good, he replied. Fear is honest. But will they fight? He looked out the window at the stars. They have no choice. The sentinels formed a circle around the central chamber. Each one radiated energy that no scanner could read. Their armor pulsed with memory, coded instructions only they could hear. They weren't just weapons. They were living keys. They would open the way and seal it behind them, win or lose. Then it came. The darkness arrived, not in ships, not in form, but in pressure. The stars dimmed. Voices inside minds began to shake, memories twisted. Some people forgot who they were. Others collapsed screaming. Entire fleets lost control as their crews drowned in fear. But then, a single voice cut through it. The handler, not shouting, just speaking. Stand. His voice rippled across comms. It echoed across systems. It reached the broken hearts of soldiers and civilians alike. Stand. The pressure cracked, light returned, and the Alliance moved. From the dead world vaults came ships shaped like no one remembered. Alive, fluid, powered by cores of thought and emotion. Humanity's real fleet, led not by admirals, but by the handler himself. The sentinels flew ahead. They entered the black zone, the space the darkness now ruled. No light, no time, just cold and silence and waiting. Then the final battle began, not with guns, not with fire, but with will. The darkness struck with screams, with illusions, with the power to erase meaning itself. It showed people their worst regrets, their failures, their weaknesses. Entire races began to crumble, but the humans held. The handler stood at the center of the storm, arms spread, body torn, blood glowing. He did not move. He held the memory of Earth in his heart, the sound of rain, the warmth of fire, the laughter of a mother, the cry of a child, the weight of love. And he pushed, his thoughts, his past, his pain. All of it became a weapon. Behind him, the sentinels sang, not a song with words, a song of stars, of silence, of survival. And slowly, the darkness began to scream, not in power, in fear, because they had forgotten what humans really were, not beasts, not machines, not gods. Hope. Humans were living hope, and hope cannot be deleted. The darkness cracked, then broke, then shattered, across the sky like glass. Light returned, systems blinked alive, stars shined brighter than ever, and in the silence after, the handler fell to his knees, not in weakness, but in peace. Zaylee ran to him. She caught him before he hit the ground. You did it, she said. He looked up at her, smiling for the first time. No, we did. Across the galaxy, the message changed, no longer prepare. Now it said, we stood, and we remember. The sentinels returned to sleep. The vaults closed again, not from fear, but to wait, in case they were ever needed again. And the handler? Disappeared into the stars, leaving behind one truth. Never laugh at the cute ones, because sometimes they're the ones who carry the fire.